From the keyboard to the boardroom. It's a Friday and we're live. This is not
what's happening. What's going on?
I don't even have an intro for this. Welcome. Welcome, William. Welcome to everyone who's watching, who's tuned in here. Yeah. William and I were talking. So here's the premise of today's live stream.
It's a new show.
Who knows
new show
if it will be a new show or a recurring series? We're not sure yet. But we're calling this Prophet X Professor Instant Insight. And the description, if you read it, is we were talking and we figured you'd want to listen. That's the extent of this. I don't know. I don't know how much. Did I sell that okay, William?
That was great. I mean, basically for the people who are watching, like there was some news in esports today. Paul and I were trying to connect all day to talk about it. We got on the phone at 7:00 on Friday. We started talking. We're like, you know what? This feels like we should just live stream it so that this is maybe people will find it interesting. So this is totally unscripted, totally unprepared. We have no idea if it's interesting or not. But there was some huge news in esports and maybe even in tech in general today. And I guess it makes sense to comment on sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, this is about as unprepared as you're ever going to see us. Because believe it or not, for the podcast, there's quite a bit of prep.
For the live stream, amount of prep.
There's a little bit less amount of prep.
But still prep.
There was no prep.
Yeah. So if that doesn't make you want to keep watching.
That's it. So stay tuned. Adam says, say what? Content gold. And Jared, congrats on the book. Yes.
Oh, thanks, Jared, man. Thank you.
It's more just another occasion to shill William's book.
That's exactly right. That's the other reason why we did this. Yeah.
Although, by the way, LinkedIn Live guidelines say we can't overtly advertise too much. Mm-hmm. But who cares?
Ready for our news here?
Yeah. So let's reveal the news we wanted to talk, or we were talking about, and figured people would want to listen.
Yeah.
And that is Fortnite banned from Apple and Google's app stores. And Epic is now suing them, which is, as two hardcore mobile Fortnite gamers, you and I, William, this was
all I do.
Yeah, this was groundbreaking.
This
today.
Is basically bricked my phone. This is it. There's nothing.
I just threw mine away. I figured there's no use for that.
This is it. I tried putting it in a bowl of rice, but apparently Fortnite still won't play. So.
Fortnite did not return. No, look, we touched a little bit because this news hadn't come out when we did the podcast.
No,
this news.
But there were rumblings it was coming, right?
There were rumblings because Apple had just approved the Facebook gaming app. Let me give some context. When we did the podcast and the live stream on Wednesday, Apple had just approved the Facebook gaming app for their app store, but asked them essentially to remove all games, so they couldn't sell or distribute any games through the app. Then all of a sudden today, or yesterday, I should say, Epic decides they're pulling, or Fortnite, or Apple, I should say, bans Fortnite from both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And now Epic is suing in retaliation. They put out a video, which I don't think we can show here, but they put out a video, very cute, a remake of Apple's 1984 ad. Set in the Fortnite, with Fortnite characters, which I thought was very cute.
Yeah, it was very creative marketing, and surprisingly showing that Fortnite feels there's a narrative here that needs to be controlled, which I think is maybe one of the most interesting parts, right?
Okay, but let's cut to the chase. Let's get to the meat. Let's get to the meat of it first.
Go to the meat of it. Okay.
Who's right, William? Who's in the right here in your mind?
Oh wait! You want me to go first? I want you to go first and draft off all your.
You're the professor here. Who's in the right?
The
I hope
truth
we don't
is,
agree. That's my only
yeah,
hope.
let's just, oh, what if we agree? We don't normally, we make sure we don't agree before
Yeah.
a podcast. Well, I don't want to give the most boring answer of all time, but let me start by giving, there's pros and cons to both sides, right? Because as we talked about on the last podcast and live stream, like Apple worked hard and invested billions of dollars into an app store in part to have control over what appears in the app store, regardless of whether this is a monetary reason or a business reason. Like, it's their app store, right? And you can get Fortnite other ways. You can get Fortnite on, other types of phone. For example, with Google, I think even though it's banned from the Google App Store, you can still get it on Google phones because Google's more of an open ecosystem. There's other ways to download it, is my understanding. I'm not 100% sure that's right.
Yeah,
But I think
Adam actually said, to be clear, it's playable on Android. You just can't get it from the Play Store. You have to sideload it.
Yeah. So, so there is sort of an argument, which is like, look, it's just, they're not saying no Fortnite ever. They're just saying not on our ecosystem because you won't play our rules. By the contrast, it's also very true that this is almost certainly driven by monetization, that Fortnite hates the massive cut Apple is getting. They're moving so much money through the Apple Store. They feel that the volume of dollars that's coming through, they should not be paying regularly. Right. And so, the interesting thing I kind of come out here is, first of all, like, at the end of the day, it's just a lot of money and somebody gets it. So, like, it's not the right or the wrong piece. I guess if I come out on a side, I'm more on the Epic Games side right now. I think that this sort of fixed pricing behavior through an app with very little other alternative avenues for access to a large swath of the consumer base, particularly in North America, which is really where Apple's strongest, right? But also parts of Europe. I think it's a little exploitative. I think that there are arguments to be made that this is, if not anti-competitive, I think it's at least somewhat, it's extremely questionable. And I think at the end of the day, I think Fortnite probably has a case here, right? I think certainly they wouldn't take this big of a risk and allow the ban to go through and be filing a lawsuit if they didn't have some degree of confidence that they thought they could extract, value from Apple here. So I tend to think probably, like morally, I don't think either side is right. I think it is what it is. You can argue both ways. I think probably legally, I think Epic maybe has more of an edge here. But what do you think, Paul?
So legally, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, right?
I guess it's true. I'm not a lawyer either. My opinion is I imagine they must think they have a strong likelihood of doing well in the suit for something like this to happen.
Look, my legal opinion is worthless here. I will say their timing is somewhat suspect, right? The fact of the matter is Tim Cook and every other major tech CEO has just appeared in front of Congress, sort of under the gun of monopolistic and anti-competitive practices. And so the timing here is, if you're trying to win a lawsuit and these guys have been taking flack for the kind of behavior you're now suing them for, if anything, so I will say I think Epic is totally wrong here. Like, I'm 1,000% team Apple.
I kind of went to the Epic side because I figured you'd be team Apple. I figured you'd like that.
But it makes me even more upset that this is the timing Epic has chosen, and very smart again, right? You want to pile on when they're under the bright lights. All these guys are under bright lights now, and every move is being watched, and they're all being shaken up to try and figure out if they're doing anything anti-competitive. And now Epic, a $17 billion company, slaps them with a lawsuit and says, this is anti-competitive. You better fix this. Look, I think the timing it's shady. I don't know. It's a bit slimy, if you ask me. It's kicking someone when they're down. But look, Tim Cook addressed the 30% cut directly in those congressional hearings. I don't know if you saw that piece, but they did ask him about it. And he said, look, the majority of developers pay nothing to be on the platform, because they don't sell anything or there's no in-app purchases or whatever, right? And then the rest pay some sliding scale between 15 and 30%, depending if it's a recurring subscription or not, depending how many years you've been on the App Store, et cetera. But fundamentally at the core, right, Apple has invested billions in research and development, in product, in services, in everything over the last decade to build out an app store that reaches millions, if not billions of people, right? So tremendous distribution. And And now Epic is going and saying, we want that distribution for free. Like, to me, this is crazy. It's as if I go on Twitch, William, right? I go on Twitch and I say, yes, please stream my stream to millions of potential viewers on Twitch. But when they want to send me $5, I better keep all the $5 because your distribution platform is worthless.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I think most developers who are on the App Store today are very happy to give Apple some cut.
Yeah.
Because otherwise their game would never reach the audience, or their app would never reach the audience it would if Apple's App Store did not exist. Right? People forget, mostly because they're too young. In the world before app stores, getting any kind of distribution for your piece of software
really
hard.
Very hard.
Borderline impossible.
Not happening.
And so Apple has now provided people with this perfect golden path to users. And now one company who, because they make so much money and they know people will play Fortnite, whether it's on the App Store or not, this is like for Epic first world problem. There's a bunch of developers, I think, who are perfectly happy paying for Apple's beautiful distribution and Google's beautiful distribution.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, two things, right? So one is, I should have clarified. I'm not a lawyer, so legally I have no idea what's going on. Just my speculation is they think they have leverage here to win, which is, again, partly to the timing, to your point, right? But the bigger thing here is, I don't think, and I'm now not arguing about this specific event. I'm arguing about like the principle that's going on here in general, because nobody is saying, and I don't even think Fortnite is saying they should get this distribution for free, which is the argument you made. Fortnite is saying we should pay less for this distribution. And there is a sort of socially beneficial argument to this, which is my favorite example. I'm going to bring up again, the bridge argument, which is if you build a bridge over a chasm and it is the only bridge over that chasm, you can charge whatever you want. There's nobody else to go over. So however, if I go and build another bridge literally right next to it, now there's competition and we're going to get a fair market price for the bridge, right? In this simplified example. Yep. However, that is a total waste of societal resources. I just built two identical bridges right next to each other when one bridge would suffice, right? One bridge would suffice. So what's happened here is in pursuit of competition, we've wasted resources. And so the argument is, look, sometimes it's just not worth socially building that competition. We should expect that in this case, the person in control, the person with the single bridge, acts more fairly because it's something that has a net social good. It avoids wasting resources, and we might want to ask for that or pursue that. Now, the counter argument here for Apple is there's more than one app store. I can have a Droid, right?
There are two bridges.
The argument is,
there are two bridges.
There are multiple bridges, but also in a real world, there's something called oligopolies, not just monopolies, right? Like you can have a small group.
So how many bridges do we need to have, William, to get to a fair price? And then what is the fair price?
My point
Why is
here,
30% not fair?
Well, there's a whole separate questions of what is the fair
price. Let's get to this comment first, though. Paul, I love you. Michael, I love you too. I miss you, by the way.
I never get any comments like that. So, look, I think with things like this, with what is the fair price, nobody knows except for these companies, right? Like only Apple really knows their true costs, what they'd be willing to bear, all that stuff. I think what you're fundamentally seeing, though, is that games have become such large businesses now, like such large businesses. The volume of dollars that are moving through these distribution pipes are starting to become valuable enough that it's worth fighting over not just the game itself, but the distribution side. And Epic in particular seems willing to lead this battle because they launched the Epic Game Store to fight back against Steam, right? They were not happy with the cut that was being given away on those platforms. And so now they had their own. And I think this lawsuit is more motivated by the fact that they can't really launch a competing app store on an Apple device, right? They can't do the thing they did with Steam.
Could launch their own phone.
Well,
the Epic gaming phone.
Yep. Yeah. And then
that's not that hard these days.
Well, yeah, maybe. But that comes down to the question of, is that building another bridge, right? Did the world really need another phone brand for this to happen? Or is this, for the sake of getting competition, there's resource inefficiencies? And I don't know. I don't know, Paul. I see both sides of this one. I really do. And I hate to have that. That's bland content. I see both sides.
How do you see both sides? Where's the Epic side? And I'll tell you, like, if Epic wins, here's what happens.
Yep,
It's not like Apple and Google say, okay, the app stores are free now. Yep. No. A win, I think, for Epic is going to look something like this. It's going to say, past 5 million downloads, it's only 5% instead of 30%.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's probably
2 million downloads, it's 10%. At 1 million downloads, it's 15%. And then you get some sliding scale. But if I'm Apple and I'm Google, someone has to make up for what I lost at the top end. So maybe that scale, instead of going to 30%, goes to 50%. Right? If you're only 100 downloads, maybe this is a 50% charge. And so what has Epic accomplished other than screw over smaller developers?
Well,
to their benefit.
Again, your argument is sort of assuming Apple always extracts their revenue. Apple always extracts their. There's another
I don't think
option
they're just going to roll over and be like, yeah, no problem. Take more money and we'll do nothing about it.
Yeah, we won't do it. Yeah. But I do want to point out that if the trend is a lot of people are upset and fighting back here, then maybe there is Apple accepting a smaller piece of the pie. But fundamentally, the perspective, and again, I see Apple's side too. I'm not disagreeing, but the perspective from Fortnite I would have is, look, Apple invested billions in their platform. Great. We invested billions in this game, right? We put money into it. It's super valuable. It's incredibly successful. Everybody loves it. We want, 40% of US users have an Apple phone. Is that right? Is that somebody watching the podcast will know the number? We would like to be able to give this mobile game to those consumers. And we cannot today because you're blocking it.
They're not blocking it. They're just saying, pay your toll. You want to cross the bridge, pay the toll.
Okay. Okay. And
hold on. There's a big difference between blocking it, which I would agree would be massively anti-competitive, versus a published sign on the bridge that says toll is 30%. It's not like when they started
$3 to cross this bridge.
But when they started building Fortnite Mobile, Epic knew the cost. Mm-hmm. They knew it.
So your argument is there was a sign on the bridge saying $3 toll. They drove on the bridge.
Yep.
All of a sudden, they realized the bridge was going to a much better place than they thought. And so they want to go back in time and say, well, when it was $3, I thought the bridge was only going here, but now it's going here. So I want $150.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fine when it was $3 and you figured you'd be driving over it 100 times. Yeah. If you're driving over it 10 million times, you're going, well, geez, I wish I could have renegotiated the price of the bridge. Well, that's not how capitalism works. It's not how business works. Just because you agreed to a deal. Fundamentally, you agreed to a deal that you're now just not happy with. Like, who cares? Your feelings don't matter here.
Okay. I think
I don't see the Epic argument other than they're unhappy with the deal that was 100% transparent in the beginning and now want to renegotiate. And look, the app stores have existed for a decade. There has been no other developer lawsuits that I'm aware of. No one's suing to get a smaller cut. Like, this is pure Epic greed. If they have such an issue with it, go figure out your own way to distribute, like you did with the Epic Games Store. Make your own phones.
It is interesting, audience. Paul. You're sort of convincing me here, talking about it, right? Like, you're sort of convincing me here. And I guess the argument to consumers is you could go and sideload on a Droid, right, if you really wanted to, right? But is there not, just play devil's advocate with me? Is there not an argument which is, look, like the volume of money we're moving through this platform, we deserve a break?
But it's a win. Both sides are winning. This is what I don't get.
Well, that is the number one thing here. This is the definition of a champagne party. Like, it's like
both sides were making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
And now, because one side gets greedy, like, everyone loses in a lawsuit. There's no winner here. There's no one who's going to win here. Adam says Floatplane, a media startup, is allowed on Play Store, but not iPhone for that reason. Yeah, I know about Floatplane. It's Linus Media Group and the guys there. Netflix doesn't have to pay that 30%. You can get the subscription off platform and still use it on an iPhone. I think if you subscribe through the phone, though, they still pay the 30%.
Yeah, I think it's channel of purchase. Yeah.
Which, look, I'm not saying these distribution systems are perfect. I am saying the rules seem to be relatively transparent, and the rules seem to be exercised pretty consistently. Like, it's not like they've made an exception for Fortnite.
Like, just to play around here, because this is interesting. Like, I haven't thought through these arguments, but I'm going to try to take your argument in favor of Apple, and I'm going to make the same argument now. I'm going to basically make your same argument from the Fortnite perspective. So your argument for Apple is we invested tons of money. We got really popular. We're a great distribution network. Now we get to charge this price because this is what we invested for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of make the same argument. And you tell me, where I'm Epic Games. I've invested tons of money. I've made an amazing game. It's must-play content. Everybody wants to play this. Super popular driving device across phones everywhere.
Yep.
I know that taking this out of the App Store, it hurts me. It also hurts you. I know that, right? I know that. Isn't this just me doing your argument reverse? This is my play to negotiate a better fee. Isn't this just business as usual? And yes, there's some consumer hurt in the meantime when the game is lost, but isn't just like this their attempt to extract the value of their creation too? Does that argument follow?
I'm not debating that. What their goal is, because I agree with you. Their goal in this play is to extract more value out of the equation, to make sure their cut is bigger than what it used to be, right? No question. And I'm sure they will, that's why I said the outcome is not going to be some zero fee. We get rid of the app stores. Like, that's not it. It's going to be, there's some negotiated agreement, mediated agreement between the two sides where they agree.
It's definitely going to be sliding scale. It's definitely going to be sliding scale. Okay. So it's okay. We'll cut a break for you, but So
I agree. It's a power play to try and do that. But I still think it's bad business, because there's one thing to do this in good faith, and you have a real you have a platform that makes sense and a position that is rational and moral and ethical. But fundamentally, Epic went into this both eyes open, agreed to those terms early on. I'm sure built it into their business model for Fortnite, right? What they didn't expect is Fortnite to be the, $300 million a month success that it is.
Yeah.
But that's their problem. That's not Apple's problem, right? Again, what I don't like is people who try and negotiate contracts when it's no longer optimal for them.
So here's a question, though. Let's step away from this. Let's just ask the logical consequence. What happens if Epic did launch a phone? Like, let's say that's the outcome here.
I would love to see that.
They say there's so much money coming through here. Like, because the other interesting question is then, is Fortnite big enough to drive a category of phone? Like, that's actually kind of interesting. Like, seriously, like, there's a lot of people who play Fortnite mobile. It's very
big enough to drive an entire game store, like a Steam equivalent.
Yeah. If it can drive a Steam equivalent, could it drive a phone?
Yes,
that's actually this is pretty interesting.
And if you want to hit back at Apple, to me, that's the way you go. But I think what they'll find is they'll discover an appreciation for the value of Apple's distribution.
That it's a lot harder to do a phone and build a user base than every other gaming phone in the history of gaming phones has discovered. It's really hard to be a gaming phone.
There's a reason why this is only a 2-horse race, essentially. It's not easy.
Yeah. Although, I don't know. It's interesting. I listening to you, Paul, I definitely see the Apple side a lot more than I did coming into this. I have to reflect more. I still think I also see a general side about in consolidated markets with limited power, just because a price is posted and charged and people agree to it doesn't necessarily mean there might be rational arguments for revisiting that price later. And it also sort of like, this is sort of how those arguments happen, right? They happen with distribution interruptions and everything, but it is interesting. And I certainly note your point, about the timing, that this is synced with high scrutiny on the business. And also B, the fact that Epic was coming out of the gate with video content ready to brand it, right? Like recognizing that there is a like they clearly, whatever you think about this, they clearly recognize very smartly, by the way, that there is a narrative here that they want to control right out of the gate. Out of the gate.
Do you think they did that video like last night?
Oh, that was my bet. Like, how many months was that held in the hopper? And how many months were people joking around saying, you know what, this is never going to launch, but if it does, like.
Adam says, do you, Epic thinks they have the leverage with profit loss for Apple, Google, and players demanding it be on the platform. Hold on. Let me reread that. Do you think Epic has the leverage with profit loss for Apple and play? I mean, Epic thinks they have leverage. Yeah, no question.
Yeah, they clearly have leverage. Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't be going through this exercise if they didn't think they had leverage. Lawsuits. This is all like just to lawyer up for a company like Epic and put a lawsuit in front of Apple. You're probably talking a couple $1 million of work at least.
Oh yeah.
At least, right? And then to retain the team of lawyers to go through with that, you're talking millions a month.
Oh, this is tens of millions in legal fees. Maybe this is humongous, right? This is why you raise that private capital round right before you go and do this.
So they think they have some leverage. I think, like I said, I'm pretty sure the end goal here is some renegotiation of that split. That's it. I think Epic will consider that the win.
I agree. I am curious though what the popular view will be, because there are two views, right? One is, come on, Apple, let Epic do the thing. The other thing is, I could play it yesterday. Epic, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Like, yesterday is not any different from today. It is going to be interesting to see what the consumer reaction is.
I guarantee you, the if you look at the mainstream viewpoint perception, the majority will be Team Epic. And I think it's because people don't think things through that well. B, because it's easy to go after the guy who's, who owns the bridge.
Yeah.
It's easy to go after this guy.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
The guy at the top's always an easy target. And Epic here is not exactly the little guy, but I think they would love people to believe they're the little guy.
Top 5 most valuable startups in the U.S. And
there's this perception, right?
But to be fair, they are the little guy versus Apple, because top 5 startup in the U.S. most valuable company of all time? Is that what Apple is? What's it?
I think it does hold that record or something.
I mean, that's also a fight which, by the way, this is why I wanted to do this podcast, is like, how cool is this? And I know that it's like, this is a weird way to phrase it. So like, how cool is this that this is how far games have come? Like, I remember when like games were like, oh, new X-Men port on the Sega Genesis, might do 10,000 units. Like, isn't this great? Like, actually, there's an X-Men game. Like, it was that level. And now it's like, this is significant news for the United States economy. For like the global, this is like has massive ramifications for how app stores, walled gardens, and some of the most valuable businesses are going to be treated moving forward. Like, that's so cool. And it's all driven by a game. It's driven by a game where you jump out of a flying bus. Like, that's pretty awesome. Like, I don't know.
Rip Windows Phone.
Yeah.
Well, doing phones is hard. So we'll see if Epic can do one. Roberto says, just ask Paul on another post to do an extra episode on this. Thank you guys so much. You're the best. You're the best, Roberto. Thank you for
Roberto. Thank you.
Yeah. Generic LinkedIn user. I don't know why I guess some people don't show up. Fortnite just needs to pay up and see how much they lose by not being on the App Store. You know what? I think Epic has miscalculated a little bit here. And I'm not saying that they're not going to, and because again, I think the end result is some negotiated outcome where they get a lower cut, like a lower price. So call that a win if you want. I don't know. But what I think they've miscalculated is how much leverage and love that the people have for their game. I think they probably think they have this much leverage. In reality, it's like this. And love for their game, they think it's probably here. In reality, it's probably here. Like, I think there's a little bit of hubris here on the side of Epic that is not it's not there. You know, like they're a little bit high on their horse right now, and Tim Sweeney especially.
Well, like deservedly so. Like, I mean, to be fair, if I have that much success, I would not even be. I would have two horses, and I'd be riding them both at the same time.
But I will say, I think Fortnite has peaked. It is not peaking; it has peaked.
Oh, I don't agree with that. I mean, the only other layer I would put on this, Paul, and it's kind of an interesting layer, I'll leave it here, just more of a question, right? Is like, remember how I've often said Fortnite is more than a game, it's a platform, right? It's going to be a platform, right?
It is a platform today.
It is a platform, right? It is a platform. How much of this do you think is motivated by this not being a app store to game war and a platform to platform war? In other words, like, if you think about it as app store to game, I think this makes a lot like we do the calculations we're doing right now. We talk it back and forth, right? Like, it's tough. If you think about it as Apple knows these guys are building a platform, right? And they're smart. Yeah. They do. And if you think about it as Epic says, hey, we're building a platform, and platform economics can't work when you need a platform for a platform, right? If we want to do all the things we want to do here, we can't be doing 30% on 30%. You know, we want to be our own apps, right? So if you take that view, like, is this not sort of like, it looks like it's about, we don't like you taking so many digital items off of Fortnite, but is it actually, we're repositioning our business model to be a new type of social network, and that is mutually incompatible with the App Store?
Yeah, I get your point 100%, and it's a really good one. I think
better than my first arguments. I picked up a little as I thought through it more. This is the risk of doing it live. We have to like actually process it.
You're not going to like my answer, which is I think Fortnite's losing steam even as a platform.
I thought, is that a pun?
So bad. This is why we should not be going live on a whim. No, but seriously,
we're never doing this again. This is not working.
Hold on. There's still hundreds of millions of players, hardcore player base, specific demographic it goes after. But that player base is going to evolve and grow up, and like, it's not clear that Fortnite's going to evolve with them, and it's not clear that they're hanging on to all the players they used to have. If you look at the numbers, like streamed on Twitch, things like that, it's all down over time. It's nothing drastic, right? Fortnite's going to keep making $1 billion plus a year, or $2 billion plus a year, whatever the number is. I just think they've overestimated. Like, again, their head got a little big, and deservedly so.
Yeah.
And now they have ambitions that maybe go out, to your point, 20 years, right? And they're going, this is going to be a problem 20 years. It's
going to be incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I'm going, well, like, I think you might be getting ahead of yourself there. That would be my kind of in your face response to your point, which is you're getting ahead of yourself. You're not there yet. Right. And the reality is you're where you are in part because of Apple. So thank you, Apple, not screw you, Apple. The reality is, in the beginning, when they were not a platform, they needed some way to distribute their game.
To be a platform. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like, this is an interesting one,
very
guys.
Few people have figured out how to, and I'm trying to think if there's any example. Like, how do you build something that's fundamentally becomes a platform without some initial method of distribution? All the platforms we talk about today, Instagram, whatever, right? They all relied on Apple and Google to distribute them.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. Like, there's something deeper going on here about where a game experience begins and ends changing, right? Because if you think about it, it used to be very clear when a game began and ended, right? You clicked a .exe file, there was a title screen, that was the beginning, right? Yep. And then you quit the game and that was the end, right? But now, like, over time, there's been this bleed outside of the game, right? It started with things like patch notes and pre-content updates and betas on PTRs, and then it moved to live notifications on your phone, and like basically like the point at which, and now really with Epic doing things like launching the concerts and stuff in the game, they're sort of making the game experience extended. Like really what's becoming is like it's starting to be less clear when you enter the gated universe of the game itself. It starts to bleed out and touch you more and more. And I think that's very interesting here. And I think that's part of the struggle that's going on here, because I think if this were just a box copy of Fortnite in a GameStop, I don't think you have this discussion. You know what I mean? Like,
but then, like, doesn't that kind of prove my point, William? Like,
what do you mean?
Your point
maybe it does,
right? Like, no one has complained about Steam's cut until Epic came along. Really, no one did.
That's not true. People complained. Independent developers complained.
We're happy that Steam existed. Do you remember how games were distributed before Steam? Do you remember? Because I do.
Oh my god! I remember spawning StarCraft on my PC. I remember
Live 4. Let's go back.
You want to go back? Okay, go back. Tell me. How are they distributed?
You would go to the electronics store or the computer store, right?
I still at the exit, sometimes go there.
They had diskettes that said shareware,
Yeah.
and you picked one up basically in the hopes that you liked the game, and then you would pay for it.
You were like,
game distribution.
Doom, this one looks interesting.
That was the best part, right? You would leave with the shareware diskette. You're like, cool, I can't wait to try this.
And maybe if you were lucky, you got an OS pack-in deal, right? You were like Duke Nukem 2D, and you could get pre-installed, and that was yeah.
Like Steam was revolutionary. There's a reason it's been around for so long. There's a reason why
it's incredible. Yep,
it still exists. There's a reason why developers still use it. Again, I'm, and Tim Sweeney has been tweeting, right? And I find it hard to believe, like to none of what he says seems to resonate with me, and maybe it's just me, but he goes, I'll read you one of his tweets here. He goes, another argument against supporting free Fortnite is this is just $1 billion company fighting $1 trillion company about money. But the fight isn't over Epic wanting a special deal. It's about the basic freedoms of all consumers and developers. Like, this is such a bullshit statement. And then he goes, finally, there's nothing wrong with fighting about money. You work hard to earn this stuff. When you spend it, the way it's divided determines whether your money funds the creation of games or is taken by middlemen who use their power to separate gamers from game creators. You're telling me there's truth in that statement?
Look, it's targeted language, Paul. Like, no,
it's just untrue language.
Do I think Tim wrote that tweet himself? No. Do I think some PR folks told him the messaging points to go? But I'm not so willing. Look, you're on Apple's side. I'm going to do the biggest cop out, and I'm truly still pressing this. I'm reserving judgment because I really do see both sides of this. I really do. I understand
Apple as a middleman using their power to separate gamers from game creators.
I'm not saying I agree with that particular statement. I admit that this is crafted language to pursue because fundamentally the narrative Epic wants in market here is Apple took away Fortnite. That's the narrative they want because that's how they win. If that's what it looks like, people get it. And then, conversely, by the way, that the narrative Apple wants is Epic took away Fortnite. Right. Like, both. And rightly or wrongly, right. At the end of the day, I really want to think more about the platform side and the arguments about what is, because there could be an argument that, look, sometimes like I can see a world where sometimes only the largest and most successful businesses have the financial wherewithal and the funding horizon to push back against inequitable distribution deals, right? Like there is a world that says, why aren't thousands of independent developers doing this? Because they can't, right? But Epic can afford to do this. And so yes, this benefits them financially. It also could cascade and benefit everybody, right? And because they're in a position to do it. Now, I'm not sure I believe that's the business case or what's going on here, but it is true that just because other people aren't fighting doesn't mean they wouldn't fight, right? Like if everybody could get 20% from Apple instead of 30%, they might want to do it. I think it really comes down to what you believe the fair value of that app store is. Is 30% the right, like, has the market settled at a price that is full and fair for the power of that distribution network? And look, nobody thinks it's 1%, right? Like, it's clearly insanely valuable to have that much of a concentrated user group to market and push your product to, and push it in such a seamless and instantaneous way. I do think the question becomes like, because again, and by the way, I think both Apple and Epic would tell you there's a number here, right? There's a number. Everybody agrees there should be a number. Nobody thinks there isn't. This is one of those hard things. It's a battle about, is the number 10, 15, 20, right? Where is the truth here? And I think I'd really want to think about what are the other industries that have gone similar, things like that, and gone through similar structures, and what has been sort of the fair market metric that's been viewable here, right?
Martin said, just tuned in. We talking about Epic taking Apple to court. Yes. Yeah. Martin says, I found the 1984 reference strange, as if any of their players know that book. I mean, or the ad, right? Because none of them were born when that ad came out.
That was a crazy
ad. Which is interesting, but that's somewhat telling, right? In that clearly this was not aimed at Epic's player base. This is aimed at probably the parents,
very interesting point.
or the general public, so that there's this public perception around Epic fighting the good fight here, right? Because they know they're at their 12-year-old average player.
It's aimed at the purchaser. It's aimed at the purchaser who gets the phone. For the 13-year-old kid, it's not the 13-year-old kid, it's the mom or the dad, right? And so they want, their hope is that the next time the kid says, I need a new phone because this no longer plays Fortnite, right? That the mom and the dad has to be convinced why that's the case, right? Because they're the one who goes to the Verizon store and says, give me a Pixel 2. Or in this case, Pixel 2 is a bad example because you have to sideload there. So, but anyway, yeah, this is a fun one. This is big news,
Adam
guys.
Says, I think if Apple wants to try and attract gamers, they'll strike a deal. If they don't care about attracting gamers, they won't. And Martin says, yeah, this could start Microsoft joining in. Takes a big fish like Epic to make change in this situation. But first of all, I don't think change was necessary. Let's just start with that. Second of all, you're both absolutely right. The Epic has enough clout, has enough weight to throw around that they will get Apple to concede to something, potentially for all developers, not just for Epic. And then Epic will be able to fly the "we won" flag. We're victorious. We're the greatest thing ever. We're the friends of consumers and developers, and, pat themselves on the back. And reality, in my mind, they're just bad business people. They're people who went into a deal, eyes wide open, realized 2 years, 3 years later, the deal was no longer convenient for them, and now want to sue their way out of it. It's why were we so hard on Tfue, but Epic gets a pass? Because Epic is acting just like Tfue. And arguably FaZe is the one who got Tfue to where he was, the same way the Apple Store.
Right? That's an interesting point.
Why?
That's an
one's
interesting
a whiny
point.
teenager and the other one is a big corporation that the corporation gets a pass? No. It's bad business. It's bad business, whether you're talking about a deal worth hundreds or thousands or a deal worth hundreds of millions.
But how would the viewpoint change if there were 30 companies doing this, right? So let's say tomorrow another company announces, it's 2 weeks from now and there are 30 companies. Does that change the viewpoint?
And well, mine, no, because then I just see these as opportunistic, greedy companies that also want to change a deal they went into eyes wide open. I think the only thing that might change the way I view this is come to me with those 30 companies, right?
Yeah.
And Tim at the front. And show me on paper why 30% doesn't make sense. Where's the math?
So in other words, the classic economic argument, show me that they are extracting the vast majority of your profits from this, right?
Yeah,
because that's what they would do. If they had market power, they would charge you up until they can't charge you anymore, right?
Show me that there's dead weight created by Apple's way overpricing of their monopoly here,
the real question here is, what is the margin on a Fortnite purchase in an app store, right? Because if it's 90%, whatever, if it's, 40%, this starts to look out of whack, right?
But it's not. We both know it's not 40%.
I know. I'm just putting the numbers out there, right?
The margin is on a cosmetic, right? That took 3 developers like maybe 100 hours total, right? And
but it also
generates like $100 million. Like, come on.
It also depends on what you load in, though. It also depends on what you load. But
my point is, we both know the math. This is why I think there's no. I don't know if Epic will win this because of public perception in this moment.
But then why
they have no leg to stand on from a pure business and what's right?
But hold on. Back up the truck, okay?
I wish
because
this is why,
because then why aren't we saying the op? Like Paul, then for all of you and your ruthless capitalism, why aren't you saying
capitalism?
But
ruthless capitalism has to be metered with good business principles and ethics.
But I'm just saying, if the answer is, because by the way, can Apple afford to charge less too? Yes, right. I think Apple makes so much profit. Of course, their business is a worse business if they're charging 25% in trend, but they could also afford it. So why isn't this good on Epic, right? They were in a moment where they saw that they had significant incremental leverage to lower their payments, right, to a major distributor and providing platform, right? And they took it upon. How is this not any different from Walmart negotiating with their suppliers, right? Where, they go in and they say, hey, that's great, but you're going to give it to us at 30% off because we're Walmart. Isn't this just the leverage shifted in the market? Previously, the leverage was with the App Store. Now the leverage may be with it. And so they're extracting it the best way we can. And isn't that clever? Shouldn't we say? Because by the way, it's not like this is going to bankrupt Apple, right? Like, oh, poor Apple, they're going to be out.
Look, my heart's not breaking for Apple, but there's nuance here that I think is important, which is if Epic had done a deal with Google to begin with, right? And Fortnite was only available on the Google Play Store, and they were paying Google 30%, right? And then 2 years down the line, they go, we're tired of paying 30%, right? Let's go talk to the folks at Apple and get distribution on the App Store. And there you're sitting down with Apple and you're going, look, guys, we had no deal with you. But we want our game distributed on our platform. And we sell millions of skins every month.
Millions.
Right? So we're not willing to pay 30. We're willing to pay 20. We think that's fair. And Apple at that point decides, is it the right deal for me? Is it not? Right? Maybe they do the deal. Maybe they don't.
But don't you think that's what happened here?
No. What happened here is Epic did deals with both of them for 30%. Terms agreed to. Whether they signed a piece of paper or not, the second you upload your app, you automatically agree to those terms. Right? There's a contract in place that you agreed to. What bothers me here is you can't just throw away a contract you signed in good faith and agreed to in good faith because you're no longer happy with the economics. If they wanted to, they could go create another distribution method for themselves and create their own. You can always go to the guy next door if you really feel slighted, but going and just suing to get out of a contract, I think is just, even though it may be good for the bottom line, it's bad business ethics.
I see where your argument is coming from here. Okay. I think it depends on how much you view that initial contract to be entered into in mutual good faith on both parties, right? Because I understand what you're saying, and this is a bit of a ridiculous argument, but bear with me. The leverage of Epic has changed massively over time, right? So the contract Epic in 2014 would be willing to sign with Apple is not the same contract they're willing to sign today. Renegotiations happen all the time in business. I think the issue you have with this is this left the boardroom and it spilled over into the courtroom. And that to you feels like this is, and by the way, maybe I agree with this, I don't know how to think about it, but that to you feels like that's sort of look, this was a business issue. You're cheating by taking this to the courts because you're going to get a win. But this is a business issue. Solve it as a business issue.
Correct.
If you can't get the leverage that you want because they won't sit down with you because they're saying 30% thanks, not on the agenda ever, then launch a phone and force them to the table that way. Then do a distribution deal with, Razer and force it that way. But don't kind of do the cheat code. And, it's basically like when you're roughhousing with your brother and they call mom and dad, don't call mom and dad on this. Like, this is a fun game
agreement. When you start fighting with your brother.
Yeah. This is a tacit agreement.
It's to the death between the two of you.
Yep. We both wanted it. This is a fun game. And look, now you've ruined it for all of us.
No, but your concept of exceptions is a good one, because I do make room for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're 100% spot on, insightful, that I think it's the lawsuit that makes this especially egregious for me. But the other part is it's not, there was no really wrongdoing on either side to justify a renegotiation of the deal, right? It's not like as if Apple has been taking 90% for the last 10 years and Epic is on its last leg and that, we need to renegotiate this or we're going to go under.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that happens. Sometimes you renegotiate with suppliers, business is bad.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
There are cases where you can make exceptions because the alternative is worse for both parties anyways.
Yeah.
But here there was nothing like that, right? It's not like if you keep going like this, one goes under. It's not like if you keep going like this, anything drastically changes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was no business justification to renegotiate other than a little bit extra greed. And even Tim sort of admits to that. This is really just about I wanted more money that I think I earned.
Unless you believe so, but where I'm letting your version of the narrative, which by the way, again, I agree with, right? But there is also another version of the narrative, which is this was like people didn't have a choice. They were forced to accept the rates. There was no way to build a competitive business against an entrenched incumbent like that. So when they signed the initial contracts, they did so to a degree under, it's not truly under coercion, but they did so. They had no alternative to sign. So it's tough to say it was coercive. They could have not launched the game. But also, if you're a game developer, you sort of have to take that lump, right? Like, this is what you have to do to get to market. And now somebody who's big and powerful like Epic is going to fight a battle for everyone, right? And they're going to hope that others join. There is, Paul, I'm not saying I agree with it, but there is a people's champion argument here for Epic, right?
Yeah, there's a people's champion argument for Epic. It's like saying, you want good things to happen for your business, and you need distribution, and you sign distribution deal. No one forced you to do that. It's because you wanted something out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No one put a gun to Fortnite's head and said, make a mobile game and put it on the App Store.
And it's also true you can't ex post what would have happened if you didn't get the distribution. How much of what you have today is distribution driven versus not. It's almost impossible to prove the counterfactual, right?
And also that Fortnite was a success before Fortnite Mobile.
Yeah.
Right? They did just fine before they had a mobile game. The mobile game was all incremental revenue. It's all gravy because of Apple and Google's distribution.
Well, what do you guys think, viewers? So we went live with this quick discussion.
Martin says you make a good point, Paul, that I'm not hearing anywhere else.
Yeah, Paul did make some good points. Yeah. Paul, you control the comments, so you just put up all the comments that say you made a good point.
You can see all the comments. It's not like I'm avoiding some. We can go back to Paul. I love you.
You're the Apple Store.
I'll just leave Michael's up.
This is a fun one, guys. I don't know. I really want to close on the thing I said before. There was how crazy is this? This is how important games are. And by the way, they're going to get more important, guys. So how insane is it that arguably the most important news story in tech in the last 6 months is, like I said, a video game about flying buses and hamster balls. This is so cool that games have become that important as a social tool, as a community. We wouldn't be here if this were Flappy Bird. You know what I mean? We're here because this stuff matters, which I think is a really nice place to be.
You want to know the business lesson in all of this, William?
What
There
is
is
it?
a business lesson in all of this.
Tell me.
Other than sort of being a good business, ethical.
What
business
about my
person.
mom and dad analogy? That was like really good. I'm gonna remember that one. Like
That was really good.
that was really good. Is that the lesson? Keep going. What's the lesson?
No, the lesson is it's your beginning. I wanted to play off of your like, this isn't it crazy that this is where gaming is.
Yeah.
But the lesson is don't go into the gaming business. Go become a gaming lawyer because they're the only winners in all of this are the lawyers. The lawyers are going to make millions and millions and millions of dollars, and it's unclear what anyone else will get out of this.
I think the lesson's the opposite. I think it's that games are so big and so persistent right now that it's no longer a question of how do you make a game. Like there's just so many big games today just have so many more parts than the game themselves. They have the tournament scene. They have the APIs to drive community play. Now they have the distribution mechanism. Like the point is the numbers get so large that if you're going to make a game, you're really making a brand. You're entering a branded space. And therefore, if you truly desire to be a successful game developer today, you're going to end up doing a lot more than being a game. And I think that's fundamentally why we see this fight going on.
Yeah, but my point is game developers can succeed or fail. Platforms like Apple can succeed or fail. Win or lose this lawsuit, which way it goes, who wins, who gets what, the lawyers still get paid. They're still going to get a check at the end of all this.
Wow.
For Sean better says, or for worse. Is there not a typical volume aspect to business? As volume goes up, power shifts. Yeah, but that was sort of baked into Apple's scale. Like my understanding was it's a 15 to 30% scale, depending on how many years, not how much scale, not how much volume. But I have a funny feeling, Sean, that this is where the lawsuit ends up. You will end up with some kind of sliding scale that Apple agrees to based on volume, which is why I think inadvertently Epic will end up helping themselves and hurting smaller developers. Maybe. I know you don't agree, but
I don't agree.
It's one of the potential outcomes that I see. I bet Epic cuts a deal with a specific phone manufacturer for exclusivity and better profit share. Phone comes with Fortnite preloaded. This starts the phone exclusives craze.
I don't agree with that at all. I'm sorry, Adam. I love you, but I don't agree with that because
then phone makers start buying game studios.
It's
not crazy because this is consoles, right? Phones are essentially consoles now. They sell in similar volumes. You could see Asus selling their latest gaming phone with the Spider-Man exclusive game.
Well, the second point but first of all, partly why I disagree with phone games going exclusive to phones is I just think in general, the trend to exclusivity is dying off in consoles because it was difficult to make work. Right. And so I don't see that same war starting in phones where it's arguably smaller stakes. Right. But I definitely do see the argument of exclusive. Phones are increasingly not about hardware differentiation. Like it's just harder to have more hardware differentiation. We did see with PCs, like, NVIDIA and stuff, that software differentiation becomes an important part of the package that gets shipped out. And so I could see that, I can sort of see a phone, a phone studio, a phone company buying a mobile studio for the purposes of carving it out. But I don't think it'll be a major trend. I certainly don't think Fortnite will do it, just because Fortnite is their goal right now is they win by ubiquity. They're doing more than making a game. So I don't think any financial deal, even 100% keep deal on an exclusive contract, I think that's counterintuitive to what they want. That would be like if Facebook only worked on certain types of, PCs or desktops.
But William, if Tim Sweeney really had conviction here, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't think he does. I think this is all a maneuver, like you said, to get a better deal. If he really had conviction, they have the capital, they have the wherewithal to go buy a small phone manufacturer. So they could go buy Razer's phone business, probably. I'm sure Razer wouldn't mind carving it out. It hasn't done that well for them. They could potentially go buy a OnePlus. They could buy some of these smaller phone manufacturers, smaller, like OnePlus sells, millions and right. They could go spend, I don't know, 10 billion, go buy a smaller phone manufacturer, right?
Mhm.
And really start competing with Apple.
Okay, Paul, I'll play your game here. I'll
Yeah.
play your game and counter. I'll play your
Okay.
game. Okay, let's say they go and do that. Let's
Yeah.
play that world out for a second. So Epic
Yeah.
takes $1 billion, whatever it
Probably
costs.
more.
Well,
But yeah.
okay, give me a number. They take $3 billion.
Okay.
They go and buy a small scale phone manufacturer. They spend a year and a half in R&D. They launch a credible competitor, and they end up extracting, because of that threat and the risk of platform differentiation, Apple comes down to 15%, right? Just hypothetically, that world, right?
Oh no, this wouldn't be a threat. I'm saying, I'm telling you the full conviction scenario.
Oh no, okay.
Like,
So
I'm
saying
giving you the Epic Game Store scenario.
the full conviction. Yeah, that's right.
Build another
So
bridge.
they launched the Epic phone, and as a result of this, there's now more competition in the market, more platform choice. App fees as a whole have to come down, and now it's 15% in this example, right?
Yep.
The White Knight Epic phone example.
Yes.
Can I just be Tim for a second and say, you took me, a great game developer who just wanted to keep making games. You made me take all this money and waste it. You separated the game creator from his creative product to go make a phone. I don't want to make any phones. I just want to make Fortnite. You made me go and spend $3 billion in 2 years making a phone to get this to 15%. Or Apple could have just put it at 15%. Like, didn't you kind of make Tim's point for him there? Like,
no, you just proved my point, which is the lawsuit is the lazy shortcut. It's the lazy shortcut.
Okay.
Right?
In a weird way, you gave me more conviction about my Epic defense there, because I was cracking. But now I'm like, yeah, they could go do all this other stuff to get to an outcome and end up with a lower rate for the industry, or that's building a second bridge. Or
no, but like, if he truly had conviction around his like, I'm helping developers everywhere, I'm fighting for the little guy, right? Even coming down to 15%, Apple, like, I wouldn't call that a win. If he's truly fighting for the little guy, offer them another bridge, another platform where developers can go, and it's game developer heaven, right?
Paul,
everything's free. Everything is.
Paul, I'm tired of you talking about Google Stadia. You bring it up on every podcast. You won't be quiet. It's never.
Adam says, I love starting jumps down rabbit holes. Sean says, great combo, guys. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend, Sean. And apologies for the rabbit holes, guys, but this was a good
one. We had a lot. I don't think it's settled. We'll do a whole podcast where we talk about it more. But this is, by the way, guys, this is what the pre-podcast is like, basically. We're like just talking to each other, throwing ideas back and forth. We're sort of not really convinced yet of either side. We're trying to figure out, where does Paul want to argue to make an industry interesting? Where does William want to argue to make it interesting? And then eventually it becomes the podcast. So now you guys know what it looks like before the podcast, if you happen to be here with us at 8 p.m. on a Friday.
No, but curious what you guys think about the format too. You know, we want to do something, like, my thinking was, I want to introduce a new series with William and I, like an Ask Me Anything or like an office hours type format. I don't know if Friday is the right time to do it. We're also thinking of doing these, like what we're calling today, this Prophet X Professor Instant Insight, when something big comes out. Like, I don't know if you guys like those two ideas.
Message us on LinkedIn, Twitter, hit us up. Like, we got to know, because we need some alt content formats, and we're not sure how to do it. So
that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, Adam, Greg, Sean, everyone who participated, Martin, I don't know who's still in here. Thank you guys so much. As always, don't forget, go buy the Book of Esports. It's kind of like watching this, but in book form, but better.
Yeah. It's like watching this in book form, but better, and there are no platform fees.
That's it. And William's always right in his book.
Exactly. Probably comes in on the sidebar.
He's always right.
Yeah, it's just delete it.
I know. Thank you, guys. Expect our Business of Esports Minute on Monday, our news roundup over the weekend, as always, and the podcast and the after show on Wednesday and Thursday. So thank you, guys. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.